The Capitals down the Penguins, but it was way closer than it needed to be.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the Capitals' victory over the Penguins, but it got way closer than it needed to get. The Capitals were up by 4 to end the first period. What went wrong? We'll talk about that in the show. A little bit later, we will talk about how the Penguins did get back into the game, but how did the Capitals find a way to overcome and slam the door on the Penguins? And then we'll talk about the Caps let the Pens in after the first period and what needed to change in the third. But just to get it going here, it was a big victory for the Capitals, and I'm going to take it for what it is, a nice victory. Obviously, I wish that they could have won by 4-0 or 4-1, as the very fact that the Capitals were able to score 4 goals was quite an accomplishment in and of itself, but they did find a way to get it done, and that was what the big important thing out there was, that they were finally getting that goal scoring that they were looking for. It was just a real good team win, all things considered. They got scoring from Alex Ovechkin, Tom Wilson. He is the one that kind of set the wheels in motion. It was a big evening for the Capitals. It's just that they kind of took their eyes off the prize in moments after the first. The Capitals started out on the right foot with a Tom Wilson goal. And, anytime the Capitals get on the board first, that is a good game. And because, statistically, it is shown that if the Capitals score first, a good chunk of the time they end up winning the game, as was evident tonight. And Tom Wilson with a sweet pass from Sandin, finding the back of the net. Make no mistake about it. And Tom Wilson's enthusiasm is infectious. But just taking a look at the game in particular, Tom's leadership and physical game played a huger role in the game than really shows up on the score sheet when he was mixing it up with Crosby, when he was really making his case that, if you want to mess with someone, you're going to answer to me. And there's not a lot of players that were out on the ice for the Penguins that wanted to step up to Tom Wilson. I did see that Malkin also wanted to stick his nose in there a little bit, but ultimately, I don't think that Evgeny Malkin wants any of that either. And I think that, oftentimes, Tom Wilson's goal shows up on the score sheet. That's evident, but his physical kind of intimidation is not something that's quantifiable, but was very evident. The Caps let the Pens back in the game. The Caps were up by 4 and nearly collapsed to the Penguins. It was a tough thing, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. That's what they have to find, keep doing, is playing complete games, not play a really good first period and then take your eyes off the prize in the second and third period. Play a full game consistently and good things will come. The Caps were up by 4 and nearly collapsed. The first time in 9 games that the Capitals managed over 3 goals in regulation. And that's one of the things I've spoke about in the show as well, is the wins that they are getting, they're kind of eked out victories. They're not decisive victories. And tonight could have definitely been that decisive victory that the Capitals were looking for. But again, they let the Penguins back into the game. What the Capitals need to work on going forward is getting a lead, a big lead like that, and keeping that lead, not letting the other team nearly win the game, because there was a whiff in the air and it stung quite bad that the Penguins were going to ride the momentum when the ice was tilted in their favor, and the Capitals would have left the Steel City with their tails between their legs. Ultimately, that is not what we want to see happen. And that's what we're hoping for going forward, is that they can learn how to play a full game. And then other unsung heroes, sometimes you take a look at the box score and you think to yourself, well, Darcy Kuemper must have not have played a very good game. He was the perfect goalie for this game, as he faced a lot of high danger shots. He was under duress for good chunks of the game, and he kept the Capitals in it. A lot of the goals that were scored were breakaways and miscues, that kind of thing. I'm not going to absolve him from all guilt, but what I am going to say is that Darcy Kuemper kept the Capitals in it. I hate to say it, but if it was a lesser goalie, I think the Capitals could have left this game tonight losing. I don't hate to say it. Darcy Kuemper deserves the credit that he gets, and ultimately, I think that he was key in the Capitals' victory. Alex Ovechkin. Wow, he is back. Is he back 100%? I'm not going to go ahead and say that, but he is trending in the right direction. Enthusiasm is building around Alex Ovechkin. And if you're an everydayer of the show, I spoke about that in Monday's practice. Spencer Carberry shook things up a little bit. He took Alex Ovechkin from his office and kind of moved him more towards the blue line, where John Carlson normally is on the blue line. He scored a goal in Monday's practice. And guess what happens tonight, Tuesday evening? He scores a goal, power play near the blue line. A big night for Alex Ovechkin as he picked up his 830th career NHL goal, his 302nd career power play goal. Again, his legs were moving. He's looking better. I think the confidence is building. I still don't think that he is going to hit his projection of where he wanted to be, but he is trending in the right direction. Maybe he's just the kind of guy this year that's taken a while to get things going. He's taken a little bit longer than he's ever taken, but I'm not going to poo-poo his night. He played a really great game. And that's interesting that, just getting those different looks. Like we've talked about, Alex Ovechkin on the power play setting up from his office, that is predictable. I think that it gave the Penguins a look that they weren't looking for. Ovechkin needs just 65 more goals to break Wayne Gretzky's all-time NHL record. Is it going to happen? That's the question. I think that it is possible, but there are some reservations that I have about it. If he can continue on this path, maybe it might require a new contract, but we are pulling for the great eight. Sandin's pass, like I said, to Wilson was money, and Tom made no mistake just 55 seconds in. That was the positive momentum. Malenstyn, another guy that's going to go in the same category as a great evening from Tom Wilson and Alex Ovechkin, was Beck Malenstyn blocking a shot that could have nearly changed the whole reflection of the game. It could have totally gone in the other direction. Malenstyn scoring a goal, of course, but also making a huge save, a block shot rather, at a pivotal time in the game that could have definitely changed the fortune of the Capitals. Make no mistake about it. So he was blocking shots, scoring goals. There's not a lot not to like about Beck Malenstyn's game as he continues to dominate. Caps wanted help with blue line scoring, and they got it from Martin Feherevary. I guess he's not as injured as a lot of people thought. When Spencer Carberry said that he was going to be out for the foreseeable future, we thought weeks, a long time. He is in good shape as he was lighting it up there and had a team-leading 5 hits. So not only scoring goals, one of the things that the Capitals were looking for was scoring from the blue line. They got it this evening from Martin Feherevary. And not only that, hitting 5 hits. So I think that he is feeling pretty good, pretty good. That's a good thing. And then after 3 goals, Jarry was yanked. And, that's all it is after that is, after the first period, there was a pretty good feeling, out there that the Capitals were up 4-0. I know that then the Penguins scored a goal there, but they were feeling pretty good. The Capitals were trending in the right direction, going between the first and second period. But then as we started to get into the second and then later and then into the third period, the ice was definitely tilted in the Penguins' favor. So that's what went wrong. And how do we fix this? How do we get the Capitals to play a complete game? Those are difficult questions that need to be answered. And I'll talk about how they fix those next. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get 150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's 150 bucks in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there's so many different ways to bet, like live same game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays and more. And let me tell you something, guys. If you're watching a game, say it's a Commanders game or a Ravens game, and you're not that into it, open up the FanDuel app and put a little money on the game. It makes watching the game that much more exciting. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So it was a good game for the Capitals, all things considered. Just to take a look at the first period, there was a lot to like. The offense was on display as Tom Wilson, Beck Malenstyn, Martin Feherevary, Alex Ovechkin lit the lamp, and it was quite an evening for the Capitals. And the thing about it is what happens? What is, intrinsically wrong with this team that they cannot take that momentum and just keep pushing it forward through the game? It's a difficult thing, and the Capitals did. They let the Penguins back in the second and third period, and what went wrong? What went wrong is they took their foot off the gas and let them back in. And the question, like I talked about, is how do they avoid it in the future? I don't think it's for a lack of trying. I think that Spencer Carberry and his assistants go over this at practice in nauseum. And, you can tell when you see Spencer Carberry, he is not a guy that hides his emotions very well. He was irritated big time in this game. And it wasn't just because of the play on the ice. It was also because of some questionable officiating, I guess I'm going to say out there. But it was a frustrating thing to watch Spencer Carberry, as you know, that he goes over this all the time, and the Capitals keep falling into the same pitfalls. Richard Raquel got the scoring going for the Pens. The mistakes proved costly for the Capitals, as there was botched assignments, breakdowns in plays, all the things that have been the perils of the Capitals this season. And then the steamroller that's known as the Pittsburgh Penguins kept rolling as Sidney Crosby and Jake Gensel made it 4-3. And watching this game, I'm like, no, this isn't happening. I mean, I know that this is kind of like, the worst case scenario, but this is happening. The darn Pens are going to come back and win this game. That's what's going to happen. They were up 4-0, and now it's 4-3. What gives with this team? But that's where the Capitals were at. How did they fix it? Well, the Penguins outshot Washington 30-11 in the last 40 minutes. So what are some of the things that the Capitals could do? Get more shots on net, more productive shots on net, just shots in general. Even if they don't find the back of the net, just pepper a bunch of shots, as many as you can get. And then penalties nearly sank the Capitals. Tell me if you've seen this movie before. The Capitals get too many penalties. They don't get enough scoring 5-on-5, which wasn't necessarily the case in this game. I know there was a power play goal, and they did get some scoring, but what it was is, I think to a certain extent, that the Capitals get comfortable, and you start thinking to yourself, I'm up 4-0, I'm up 4-1. I don't really need to go as hard as I've been going in other games, but quite to the contrary, you need to continue to apply pressure through the duration of a complete game if you plan on winning games. And one of the things, like I talked about in the first segment, is the games that the Capitals have won this season. They haven't been by a large margin. They've been by one goal. They've had to go to the shootout, overtime, that kind of thing. We need more decisive victories from the Capitals. And again, if they would have lost this game, this would be a different thing. So I don't want this podcast to have a super negative connotation. But what I'm saying is that they won, but there's work that needs to be done. I don't know if you were ever in school and you got a report card and it said, he passed, but needs work. It's kind of like, okay, I passed. Yeah, need work. Oh, darn. That's where the Capitals are at. They won the game. They won the battle, but they necessarily haven't won the war. What is the war? The Metropolitan Division. And it was a big point. I'm glad. The biggest thing I'm happy about is it did not require them going to overtime or a shootout, that they've left with full points. They didn't get a point. They got the points that were needed to chip away in the Metro Division. They still have a long way to go as they take on the New Jersey Devils next. That's going to be a difficult one as well. I know that the Devils have been kind of up and down this season, but never underestimate your opponent. That is the definition of a trap game, and the Capitals need to avoid that at all costs. So to wrap up my feelings about the Capitals in the second and third period, that they should have not let the Penguins back into the game. But there is a silver lining to all of this. And what am I talking about? In the next segment, we're going to talk about that despite the fact that the Penguins staged a comeback, that they nearly beat the Capitals, that the Capitals had resolve, they had tenacity, they had pushback that said, you're not doing it to this Capitals team, not this time. How did they get it done? I'll discuss next. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And one of the things that's frustrating for me is that when a band comes to town and I can't find tickets, and I go to this website and I go to that website and I can't find tickets. And then if I want to go to a Capitals game, or if I want to go to a Commanders game, I'm looking for tickets, I can't find it. Put all that aside and open up the Game Time app. It makes buying tickets that much easier. Not just buying tickets, but you can see what options you have, and Game Time takes the guesswork out of it by buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So there was some highs, there was some lows, and it ended on a high for the Capitals. As we know, the first period was about as good as you could possibly script it. The second, and then even parts of the third period, were rough for the Capitals, but this was different. This Capitals team had some pushback. That they weren't a turtle and they just didn't, recede into their shell. They had some pushback. And how was that evident? Tom Wilson, you've seen that Edmondson, you saw Feherevary, you saw John Carlson, that there was a physicality. One of the things that I think has been kind of void from this year's Capitals team that maybe you've seen in previous years is a physicality. And I think that can kind of change the momentum of an entire game. Tom Wilson, like I talked about in the first segment, his intimidation factor, him getting in Crosby's face. You took a look at what happened when Lars Eller, in kind of a strange moment, kind of got into it with Darcy Kuemper, and Darcy Kuemper hit him. And then all of a sudden, Lars Eller wanted to go after Darcy Kuemper, and Joel Edmondson's like, dude, what are you going to do about it? Do you know what my reputation is? I will destroy you. And sometimes those are the things that can kind of take the air out of the tire of your opponent. I don't think that there's any aspect of Sidney Crosby that wanted to fight Tom Wilson. That would not have gone so well for Sidney Crosby. And considering his long history of concussions, that would have been ill advised. Same goes for Evgeny Malkin. I know that, probably 10 years ago, he was a lot tougher, but he's not the same Evgeny Malkin, and Tom Wilson would have wiped the ice with him. So that's what I'm talking about, is the physical game. It's kind of like softening your opponent. You hear about this in the war sometimes, that before they send in the troops, they drop a bunch of bombs first to soften the targets. It's the same thing that goes on in sports. Send out a heavy physical game, have Tom Wilson, Joel Edmondson, Nick Dowd. There was a lot of players that got chippy in this game to soften the targets, and it makes the rest of it that much easier. But the big thing in the third, other than the physical game, was the pushback, and that's what I liked about it. The resilient Caps would not give up and turned up a physical game and overcame. And it wasn't just, the guys in front of him. It was Darcy Kuemper stopping 33 of 36. There were some extremely high danger shots that Darcy Kuemper had to stop. And I know that he receives a lot of flack, a lot of people saying that, why are they paying him all this money? He's not worth it, when Charlie Lindgren's the guy, and that, Hunter Shepard, they have other viable options. And I've even alluded to it as well. But tonight, I'm a guy about not, holding on to past statements. I'm talking about what I saw from Darcy Kuemper tonight, as he was the perfect guy for the Capitals tonight, saving 33 of 36 on a Penguins team that was firing both barrels at the Capitals. And he was the big wall in net that got it done. So a great game for Darcy Kuemper, despite the box score. You got to kind of look into it a little bit more than other than just seeing what it is, because he faced a tremendous amount of shots and did an admirable job. Malenstyn and Ovechkin both had 4 shots on goal. So Malenstyn, as I spoke about, what kind of, him blocking that big shot that kind of stemmed the tide for the Pittsburgh Penguins and put the momentum back into the Capitals' favor. That was a game saver. I mean, make no mistake about it. That block that Beck Malenstyn made was a game saver. It could have totally gone the other way. And I could be talking to you guys right now about a Capitals loss, but Malenstyn scoring a goal, plus that huge shot. Malenstyn is endearing himself, and I think playing a lot better than anyone had projected him for. I've always been drinking the Beck Malenstyn Kool-Aid. I've always thought he's a great player, but I think that he is far exceeding everyone's expectation. And I think that, I think the Capitals could take, learn a lesson from that. And what do I mean when I say that is, if they don't have the talent that they're looking for on the big team, like I've talked about, like I said, if you're an everydayer, they have plenty of talent down in Hershey that's just waiting for their opportunity. Look at the huge role that Beck Malenstyn is playing on this team. It's not just scoring goals, even though he's doing that. He's blocking shots. He is doing whatever it takes to help this Capitals team win. I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. If Beck Malenstyn was not playing on the ice tonight, this game, the Capitals could have nearly lost. I think that, undoubtedly that big save that he made, the goal, and I'm not going to even just, isolate it to just this game. I'm going to go ahead and say that the Capitals may have lost a bunch of other games this season if they didn't have Beck Malenstyn in there. I know it was a close game, but what I'm saying is that block shot, say Beck Malenstyn wasn't playing, they'd be -1 goal, and I think the Penguins had one more goal. So that's what I'm talking about here. A huge role for Beck Malenstyn, and kind of an unsung hero, a fourth line guy that doesn't get enough praise that he should. And that's what makes me proud of this team. It's not just the marquee names. It's not just the Alex Ovechkin. It's not just the Tom Wilson and Nick Backstrom and TJ Oshie's. It's the guys, the work boot guys, the blue collar players that are on this team, the Beck Malenstyn. You take a look at Protas and Dowd, the guys that are getting it done in the trenches, and they kind of do it most of the time without a lot of fanfare. You talk to someone outside the DC market, how many of them do you think are that familiar with a guy named Beck Malenstyn, a fourth liner with the Capitals? But If you're not familiar with him, you should, because he is a key piece to this team. Make no mistake about it. In the fourth line, you may as well just, take a look at the fourth line and what it's meant for the Capitals this season. That was part of the slamming the door on the Penguins. You take a look at what Dowd did. And then not only that, but it's the bottom six in general that I'm really proud of this team. And that's what I mean. And some people say proud. What do you mean? That it's the guys that have been kind of, marinating down in Hershey for a while. And the guys that don't get a lot of fanfare in the bottom six, those are the guys that are saving the Capitals bacon on a night in and night out basis. Alex Ovechkin getting a goal tonight, that was a really great thing. It feels good for me as a Capitals fan. Tom Wilson, another guy getting a goal just to kind of set the momentum for the team. That felt really good for me. But also just the depth pieces, the bottom six, the defense stepping up. Darcy Kuemper, knowing I think that he's facing a lot of criticism, wanting to prove a lot of people wrong. I think that he's a confident man, but I think that he hears the chatter out there that, maybe he's less than what people think that he is. And I think that can get to a person. So I'm really happy for Darcy Kuemper as well, as he saved the Capitals. He was the perfect goalie at the perfect time for the Capitals tonight. I would have had it no other way. I want to thank you once again for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.